Okay guys, next up is the control box assembly. This is by far the most fun part of the entire build. So you're going to need the control box screws, control box screw labeled bag, the acrylic pieces. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces. And now the best part about this whole printed build is taking the paper off the acrylic. So I'm going to quickly do that and then we'll move on. Taking all the paper off there. Took me a good half an hour to do that, so I wasn't lying when I said it's the most fun part of this 3D printer build. But we will get on to building this. Okay, so when it comes to the manual, you get very little instructions. You get one picture that shows you how to use the nuts that insert into the little slots in the plastic, which are very fragile. Otherwise you get a blown up view of where things should go. So we'll try and decipher how this gets done. We'll start with the bottom plate, which will be this guy, as far as I know. He's got the holes in the bottom. And he'll go that way. Got the clear acrylic piece, and that will go in that should line up with these there. We will put this grid. We'll put this grid in first. That's out there, and we'll put the back plate in first as well. Just like that. So we're kind of starting to look like that. Then the other side plate. And this LCD panel goes in the panel holder. Goes in there, like that, and now we just gotta get some screws and bolts and bolt it together. It says M412, so you get a whole bunch of screws and nuts. M412s are these guys here, you can see, and these M4 nuts. So we'll do one at a time. Starting with the back piece here. They should just slot into the acrylic holder. And what I'm finding is that these M4... Oh, right. So in the manual, these red acrylic pieces here, there's one with the TEVO sign and one without. The one without goes on the left hand side. And you do in fact have to put them on before you screw it in, because the screw goes in first. So we'll do the fan first, this guy here. Now you want the sticker, so that's the side where the air is going to be pushed out towards. You want the sticker facing outside, so it's basically going to be pushing air from the inside out. And I found the two standoffs. So you get these two M340s, I think they look like. And you have the standoff first. Put the standoff on, same thing with the other one. Down the bottom here. Okay, now that those are nice and tight, you should be able to just slide the fan onto each screw, like that. And with your M3 bolt, down the bottom, just finger tight should do. There we go, so if you can see, there's the fan mounted there, and it's offset with the standoffs there. Okay, so next thing we'll do is we'll put the control box in, the control board. We want to mount our M320s, put them through the holes there and there, so you can see them there, and down the bottom as well. Down the bottom as well. Screw on your standoffs. Okay, so I've got those bolts screwed on. Finger tight is plenty, just to keep the board on. The power supply, this power socket, which is somehow connected to the switch, and then the power socket gets inserted down there, and then two M3s it looks like. M310s. Power switch with the M310 bolts. You want to mount them before you actually place it in the case. It just makes it a whole lot easier to mount. The basic assembly of the box done. Now what we want to do is you grab the LCD display, which is this guy here, and without knocking all your screws off the desk. So it's definitely the M320s. Yes, it definitely looks a lot better without standoff. Okay, so we'll put the M320s in. Just get the holes lined up. Okay, there we go. And it seems to fit pretty flush. Looks pretty good. You don't want to flex this. You don't want to flex the control board too much of the LCD screen. Okay, so we've got the fan installed now. The plug, the plug installed at the back. Now we're just going to install the switch. So we unplugged both terminals. That terminal there goes, can actually get re-plugged back in to the far left hand side, just like that. and then you want to unscrew the switch and unthread all of that, and then you want to take these cables and run them through the hole, the round hole that the switch fits into, just like that. And then you're going to take all these cables again, put this ring back on, and you're going to screw it back on. Just like that. Make sure that the on-off button is upright. And then tighten it up as much as you can with your finger, and that should be enough. That should be all good. Okay, so we've got the switch installed, we've got the fan installed, we've got the plug installed, the control box installed. The last thing to do is the power supply. So in your power box you should have your standard 24 volt power supply, and this guy should fit, let's see, should go in this way like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over, just keep holding it and you should be able to see through. And now you want these M48s, they should be able to line up the hole, and you should just be able to screw these 4 screws in. And there we go. That's pretty much everything installed. Now we just gotta wire up the terminals and then connect all these connections to the printer, and we should be able to get it running. Okay, so now wiring up this power supply. These LED strips came with the with it, so it's in that design. I think they're given so that you can put it on the inside like that. I'm not a fan of that. I'm probably going to mount them somewhere else, so I'm going to leave them out for this part. They're pretty easy to wire in. You just got to wire them parallel with the 2 fans. So the 2 fans that come straight off the 24 volt power supply. And firstly, you get this bunch of cables. You want to cut them open. Now this cable here is fairly long. I mean, it's like a meter long. You're only going to need it to basically wire the main board using this green terminal here to the power supply, and the rest of the wires, as far as I know, should go, the 24 volt fan on the hot end, and this fan here also wired directly to the power supply. But first things first, we're going to start by wiring the main board to the power supply. So we'll get our crimpers. So something like this is pretty useful. I'm going to use these to strip the wires, just like that. You can see that there. And those are going to go, so obviously positive is red, the black and red, or black, is negative. So we will wire that into the right terminals of this green power supply input on the control board. So you got your little screwdriver, flathead screwdriver. You're going to take these and loosen them all the way out. And then, so the positive is, if you read on the board it says, so the positive is on the left, or the bottom in this case. So we'll put him in like that. Tighten him up. That's nice and secure. Same thing with the negative side. There we go. And now we want to route this cable so that it doesn't bend the terminals. Just around there, give or take about that much. So we're going to cut it off at about here. So let's get the wire cutters. Cut it off there. And then I like to completely separate these wires so that they don't put strain on each other, because any kind of wiggling in there will cause a fire. And then you're going to want to buy yourself, or get some of, I don't know if you've already got some of these, which are electrical terminals, the ring terminals. I use the wire is 3mm wire, and you want to crimp these on to each part that's going to connect to the power supply. You crimp in these connectors, so you slide it on like that, and you grab your crimp, and then you've got your two circular ring terminals crimped on there. And now as far as I know, the far right hand side of the power supply terminal block, you start with live, neutral, earth. It says live, neutral and earth, and then you've got 3 negative terminals and 3 positive terminals, just like in the diagram in the manual. So that makes life easy. You want to get your screwdriver. So you want to take this screw out, screw around the plate out. So you take this guy out, and that is the positive terminal. So you take your positive lead, you want to run it looped around like that, put the screw through, and then screw that ring into the terminal. Nice and tight, just like that. You want to pull that excess wire so that your wire isn't touching the fan. That should be fine. Okay, and then you do the same with the negative, except now you're going to go into the 1, 2, 3, 4th from the left, so the first negative terminal. Remember to take the whole thing out, and then you loop your wire. This negative wire is not wanting to stay in that terminal. I have to cut it a bit longer. Okay, and then you loop your wire around the corner, down there, and then I'm just going to strip this a bit more. Because he doesn't seem to want to stay in the terminal. Okay, now that goes in there nice and tight. Okay, just going to make sure this wire stays down the side here. Don't want it getting anywhere near our fan blade. Okay, so now the power board is wired to the power supply. Next up, we're going to wire the plug and the switch to control the power supply. So we just want to get all the cables that come from the switch out of here. Okay, and then those go there. Okay, so we've got these three, you should have 3 cables. So 1 neutral and 2 live coming from the switch. And the way you want to wire it is so the 1 live wire, which has the crimp connector on it, like that gets plugged directly into the far right hand, the opposite side to the negative wire on your plug connector. So just gonna wire this guy through there, slide down the insulation, plug him in, just like that. So he gets wired in there, just on the right hand side of the switch. And then the neutral from the plug and from the switch, so your black and black, they get crimped together. So I'm going to strip these a little bit more, put them on a single crimp, and they get wired to the neutral wire input of the power supply. Okay, so you got your 1 neutral wire coming straight from the switch. This is the switch one. You got 1 coming from the plug. You're gonna twist them together, like so. So they pretty much join, and then you're gonna grab a circular ring terminal, crimp, slide it in. Sometimes twisting it helps. And you're gonna crimp them on. Crimp it on nice and tight, and then he is going to get connected to the second terminal from the right, or the neutral terminal, the one labelled N. There we go. And these excess wires are now going to get fed around this corner here, down, out of the way. Okay, just do the same with this. Okay, and we left with 1 live wire coming from the switch. That goes to the live input of the power supply. So we're going to crimp this guy. I'm going to crimp a ring terminal onto him. Just like that, and he gets plugged to the first. terminal on the right, or the live, the one labeled L. And same thing again with the wires, they get run all the way back along here into this open space. They can sit there for now. We're going to cable wrap them all to make them nice and neat. Okay, so we've got the main board wired up, we've got the switch and the switch wired up. So now we're going to take this over to the printer and connect up this fan and the hot end fan and all the other wires. Okay, so here we've got the control box next to the printer. You're going to want to take, I believe, okay, so now for some reason, my extruder cooling fan wire was connected to the white end stop, the white thermistor wire, which I don't think is correct. So I'm going to unplug that, and then there's another wire here which is black and red, which is good, and I'm going to connect those two into that, just like that. And now you've got your extruder cooling fan, which will be 24 volt, and you've got your other fan inside your control box, that's also 24 volt. You want to wire these two together, so wire them like the same way we did with the switch. So I'll just strip these quickly. The two negatives I'm going to twist together, and the two positives, or two lives I guess, two positives, DC. Two positives I'm going to twist together. And then, following the manual, it says then to wire the positive to the positive and the negative to the negative directly to the power supply. So we're going to crimp these ring terminals on first. And that should hold. Now we're going to, the positive two that have been crimped together, and you want to screw them in to the second positive terminal next to the other positive terminal that you've screwed in, and then the negative you want to unscrew the second negative one and put the screw through the two negative crimped rings. Tighten them up, make sure they're all nice and tight, make sure the polarity is correct. So you've got your positive on the far right or far left, depending on which way you look at it, and the negatives and stuff, negatives are in the middle, the two. Now one other thing that you can do, I'm going to do this just for safety reasons, because this is this power supply is earthed to the case, so I'm going to just run a cable from the earth cable on the plug straight to the earth on the power supply. That way you're protected from getting a pretty nasty shock. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my earth connected from the middle prong on the plug to the third terminal on the power supply, which is the earth. So that should make sure everything's grounded and safe. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these cables, all those big cables, I'm going to put a nice wire wrap around it and then run them through out this rectangular square thing, hole in the box.